welcome to another review and plot reveal of a movie. Tonight we'll be doing Frankenstein, Guillermo del Toro's 2025 movie. Well, let's just get it out there. I thought it was a pretty decent movie. I thought it was really different. I like what he's done. He wrote it, he directed it, so I like what he did with the story. I like how he adapted it to his own version and really brought it to life in a whole new way. Krishna, what's up? How was that movie, dude? Didn't Don't be silly. What? um, but yeah, pretty. I really enjoyed it, Krishna. It was a good one. It's a long movie. It's like 2 hours and a half. And like I said, I like what he did. I like how he changed the story up and really, in a lot of ways, how he made Victor Frankenstein, the guy that the doctor, made him pretty much the monster of the movie, the true monster of the movie, and how the monster himself is like this pure creature that learns to be angry from all the malice he receives from the world, but at the same time is almost more human than Victor Frankenstein. Hey, I'm glad to hear that you're not quitting cricket now because my grandpa came in to say, "Fuck the world, don't care about it, focus on cricket. I will support you." Hey, that's fantastic. Hell yeah, man. Hell yeah. I was thinking about you earlier, what you said, and I was like, man, like I hope he doesn't quit because if it's truly your passion, Krishna, if it's truly your passion, it's what you want to do. Like for me, filmmaking is something I always wanted to do since childhood, and I haven't quit. I may have struggles. You're always gonna have struggles. You're gonna have some good days, some bad days, but it doesn't mean you should quit. If it's truly something you want, my friend, one of these days I'll be watching you play like Major League Cricket. You know what I'm saying? Who knows? Who knows? That's pretty cool. Yeah, he seems pretty legit. That's awesome. My dad was he was in the military, Argentine military, because I'm from Argentina, so he was in the Argentine military. But anyways, but I'm proud of you, Krishna, for like sticking in there and finding support from your grandpa. It's really cool. But yeah, back to the review. I love what he did with the settings. I love what he did with the storyline. The filmmaking was amazing. The way he built up Frankenstein was really different, and I really appreciate the art direction. He really truly made an artistic art piece that will probably last time. The test of time. Um, but it was when I first watched it, it was like, man, this is so different. When I first watched it, I was like, this is so different. It was a little bit, it was breaking my mold of what I thought a Frankenstein movie should be. And it was a little hard to accept. But as I got into it, yeah, I agree with you, Christian. It had some like Tim Burton vibes, but that's also Guillermo's del Toro style. He dives into the darkness of things, but he's not as kooky. He's not as like circusy like as Tim Burton. He's more, like you said, more the gothic vibes. And I I have an affinity appreciation for those kinds of movies. Um, but it's what I like about it is he breaks the mold, the traditional mold of what a Frankenstein movie should be. I really appreciate that factor that he brought, the originality that he brought, his own. He wrote the script, so he really broke the mold with that. The settings were amazing, the costumes were amazing. The acting, it's fitting for the 1800s. It's not really my cup of tea, but it is true to like that style of speaking, right? In the mid 1800s, we're talking like 1850s, right? So I mean, it seems to be on par. You know, Lots of blood in the movie, surprisingly, lots of blood. And what I found really funny is that Victor Frankenstein drinks milk like all the time, even as an adult. and that's something that I do. Like my main drink besides water. Yeah, cool, cool, Krishna. Yeah, go do your thing and come back. But it's really funny because I drink milk all the time. So what does that mean? Does that mean I'm a genius like Victor Frankenstein? Am I an oddball genius? Are people who drink milk into their adulthood, are they oddball geniuses, or is that some kind of weird psychological thing? But anyways, so I give it a like two thumbs up, 5 stars out of five. All the movies I've been reviewing have been I picked them specifically because I have a feeling they're gonna be good, and so far I've been right. And so this one I put in that same pile. It's a really interesting, innovative storytelling. As far as what he did with the whole Frankenstein story, and how he took it to an extreme of really showing Victor Frankenstein the monster, and the monster that he created is like more pure, more human than Victor, because Victor is a terrible human being. Um, and he's got a his character arc is interesting because he just gets worse and worse and worse. Victor, he gets worse and worse and worse as a human being as the movie goes on, and he's lying about stuff. He's going mad. Anyways, before I give out too much of the plot line, if we're gonna start talking about the plot line, then I might as well start from the beginning of the movie. And the way he's structured is interesting. It has a prelude, it has a part one, which is Victor's tale, and it has a part two, which is the creature's tale. And I thought that was interesting. And it was actually really hard for me to pinpoint some of the basic things that you see in storytelling, right? The hook is pretty obvious. The inciting incident was kind of hard for me to go, where is the inciting incident in this movie? Is it this? Is it that? Is it this? I think I figured it out, but it's a very like super nuanced thing, right? And then there's the hero's quest, the journey he goes on, and like traditional storytelling, Victor actually refuses. He's like, let me think about this, because he's offered a deal, and he's like, well, let me think about this, right? So he refuses the thing, and finally he takes on the quest. Um, but let's just start from the beginning, right? So if you don't want to hear the plot line, you want to go watch it for yourself, then go watch it. But I'm gonna tell you the plot line of the story now. So it starts off, and I'm gonna say this real quickly too. I noticed movies lately don't do the whole like beginning credits and it like takes forever to get to the movie. I'm really appreciating the fact that movies today, they just get straight into it. They do like a few little credit things and they get straight into the movie. And I really appreciate that more than just having a long title sequence that takes forever. I noticed that change recently and I like it better, to be honest. So here we are. We're in it doesn't say exactly where we are. It just says somewhere like furthest northern point. It's 1857. There's this Danish royal ship that's stuck in the ice, and you have like the sailors, and they're trying to chip away at the ice, and the captain's like he's just very much trying to get the ship out of the ice, but not just the ship out of the ice, but he wants to get through the ice and get to the North Pole. That's his mission. And he reminds his crew, you're like, no one's going home. We have a mission. We're going to do this, right? Captain Anderson, I believe his name is. So he makes it very clear to the crew. And later that night, he's resting in his like captain's chamber or whatever. And I'm not sure what you call it, but his toe is black. Like it's completely like frozen and whatnot. He's got his hands and he's like trying to mold his like he's just like massaging his feet, and there's an explosion heard, and basically they go out and investigate. He sends men out there to go see what's going on. There's a fire, and what I like about before I continue on the plot, what I really like about what they did with the storytelling is really interesting. It really does a full big like just circle, because the beginning is the end of the movie. So I like how they start at the end of the movie, and then Victor goes into he tells his tale to the captain, and then we go back in time, and it's like him as a kid, and then him as an adult, like in like 1955, I mean 1855, and then it goes through the whole story, right? And then it goes into the creature's tale. And what I really like about the whole aspect, that you have Victor's point of view, and then later you have the creature's point of view. And it's really interesting because Victor is so filled with like madness and just hatred and anger and self anger, that he tells his tale in one way, but then the creature comes in to finish his tale, and he shows the captain that he's not this monster that he's been made out to be. And so, but anyways, it goes full circle. And also, what I like that is very nuanced is the fact how Victor treats the monster is the way he was treated by his father. So I find that fascinating, and that little tidbit that he includes really fills you in. Like it just really just it fills in the psychological aspects of the character, and I really appreciate that myself as a filmmaker and storyteller. When you really get to the nitty-gritty of what makes this man the way he is, it's the psychology, it's the things that he went through, that make the man who he is and the choices that he makes, right? And so, true to life, I really appreciate the fact that in the beginning of the movie, they give you, like, Victor's telling his tale, and he talks about his father, and I don't know at that point, because Victor is like near death, and he's like telling his tale. If he understands that the reason why he is the way he is because his father, I'm sure he understands that at this point, but it makes for really good filler for psychology, for the characters, and it really clicks. It makes sense, right? He did a good job with that, and I find that a lot of, like, it makes sense because Guillermo del Toro is a very masterful person at his craft, and I find a lot of filmmakers aren't necessarily at that level, and so sometimes the psychology is lacking in the movie. But he did a really good job with this. So, anyways, so we're at the boat, right? You got the men who are chipping at the ice. They go out, they heard an explosion. They go out to find what's going on. They see this tent that's on fire, and they find this man. And the man is Victor. He's on the snow. He's bleeding, and they check his leg because it's like twisted. But they find out the leg is a prosthetic. And so then, like, they turn around because they hear a monster coming. They hear like a monster roar. They don't know what it is. And so they take Victor on a gurney. They take him back to the ship. They lift him up to the ship, and at the same time, the monster's like the monster. I mean, like, Frankenstein's monster is headed their way, and so the captain readies a few men with guns to aim at this monster, and they fire. And Frankenstein's monster gets shot. He's hurt. He kind of falls for a second, and gets back up, and then they fire again. And he's getting closer, right? And at this point, the captain's like, "Okay, like, this is crazy. Everybody on board the ship." So the creature, like, starts attacking back. He hits a guy, he goes flying, he's got incredible strength. Yeah, he keeps hitting people. There's one shot where he literally like smacks somebody in the face, and his face literally like goes flying. Like, it's crazy, and he breaks his back. And then he's just killing people left and right. And everyone's running up to the ship, and then there's a ladder that goes up to the boat, and they don't have enough time to pull it up. So the Frankenstein monster climbs it, and he's on board, and everyone's freaking out. They're just staring at him like, "Holy crap!" And then one guy attacks him with like a harpoon type thing, and it like hits him in the chest. He just breaks it off and throws that guy off board. All the people that attack him are like either flying off the ship, or like getting, like, one guy gets his arm twisted like so many times it just breaks off, and then like another guy goes flying, and the captain's like, "Give me the," he calls out to one of the guys on ship, and he's like, "Give me the blunderbuss," or something like that. And it's this really cool rifle. It's a rifle that's got, this is 1850s, right? 1857. So it's like old school, like old school rifle, but it has four, like, triggers, like one, two, three, four, and the barrels, they turn. because each barrel has a loaded bullet or whatever. So it's a very interesting gun. And so the captain pulls out, I think it's called the blunderbuss or something like that. He pulls this out, he fires, turns the barrel, then the next thing fires, and he's hitting the monsters. As the monster's getting hit, he's like falling back, and eventually on the third shot, the monster flies over the boat and goes crashing into the ice. Not through the ice, but he lands on the ice, and so they think they killed it for a second, but it starts getting back up. So the captain's like, "All right, pull the ladder up, hurry!" So they pull the ladder up, so it's not able to climb back on ship. And the monster is like pissed. He wants a victor. He wants a victor for either revenge or whatever to make his life hell. And we find out why he's like that. But essentially, because he can't get to the ship anymore, the monster starts pushing the boat. It's like it's starting to like tilt. He's got amazing strength. The boat's like freaking turning, and the crew start like sliding. They start sliding, and it looks like the boat's about to turn over. But the captain's able to get to the edge of the boat to where he can see the monster, and he takes that gun and he shoots the ice. And at this point, because the monster's been pushing on the ship, it's kind of crackling the ice, and that shot really makes a pretty deadly crack in the ice. So the ice breaks up, and the monster falls into the water. He falls through the ice into the water. And at this point, they think they've killed it. He goes back to Victor. Victor is like he's in the captain's chamber. He's laying down, and the captain's like, "Okay, you don't have nothing to worry about. We killed it." And Victor's like, "No, you haven't killed it. This thing doesn't die. It's gonna come back, and you got to promise me when it comes back, you got to let me off the boat and just hand me over. Like he's gonna kill all your men." And then the captain's like, "What kind of beast is this? What kind of devil made this monster?" And Victor looks at him and goes, "I did. I'm the one that made him. I'm the one that created him." And then he goes into his tale of like who he is, why he had the aspirations to do this. And he goes into like his journey of showing, people his stuff. And like I'll get into that, but he's telling his tale. So what happens is he goes into his childhood. He tells, he's telling his tale. He goes into his childhood, and he goes into this story of when he was a kid. His mother had a lot of money through like plantations and stuff, and the house looks like a palace. I mean, it's incredible the way it's like the I mean, the movie itself, the set is amazing. The dressing, everything, they did an amazing job. I mean, by today's standard, that place would be a museum. It's just an amazing, like, palace type mansion. Paintings everywhere, huge, enormous library. Anyways, there's this really prominent, like, top surgeon doctor that married, this woman to secure his like stature and whatnot. And so uh, Victor's dad is this prominent surgeon, and while he's growing up as a kid, his dad um, basically forced him to study to become a surgeon. And that's what makes Frankenstein, Victor Frankenstein, like a genius, right? He's a mad genius because he was taught by the best surgeon in London, um, at a young age. He forced him to memorize a bunch of stuff and learn a bunch of stuff about the body. And there was times where he would get things wrong. He had to like explain things to his father by memory, and if he got it wrong, his father would get a stick and would like whip him. But he wouldn't whip his hand, because he told Victor that his hands are gonna be like his best tool, his craft, and he didn't want to damage his hands. So he would hit him in the face with a stick. And so later we see Victor doing the same thing to the monster. Um, so that's why I appreciate the fact that that's included in the story, because then like later we see how Victor he's like a mad genius, but he's also he's like he's not very, what's the word? Like he's not kind. He's not someone with patience, right? Like he's a lot like his father in a lot of ways, and he doesn't realize it. He can be very strict, very cold, very like just logic, like very emotionalist about things. But anyways, so he talks about that. Eventually, his mom passes away from giving birth to his brother William, and then, ooh, I just heard a thunder. Eventually, um, his father dies as well, passes away because he's a much older. He's a much older man, and so he loses his mom and father at a young age, which we all know when that happens to you at a young age, that does like a lot, like psychologically and emotionally, right? It does a lot, and so and actually before the father dies, there's a scene where he confronts his dad because he realizes something about death, that even though his dad is the top surgeon in like London or whatever, he couldn't save his mom, you know? And so he made a promise to himself that he was going to become the best surgeon, better than him, and he was going to figure out how to beat death, you know? And and it was at that point on in childhood that's what he realized his mission was in life, you know? And then his dad passes away. And so what happens is the brothers are separated. They're separated, and one is sent to Venice. The younger brother William is sent to Venice, and Victor is sent to Edinburgh, something like that, where he spent decades growing up, like learning about the body and becoming like trying to become the best surgeon in the area. So it skips ahead. His stories, his story skips ahead to when he's older. It's 1855, and he is giving a lecture presentation at the like Royal Academic for Medicine, like this like really high institute place. It's like a hearing. There's like people with wigs, it's like high class. And this is where we meet for the first time this character. What's his name? Hargendale or something like that. I'm already forgetting the names. But yeah, this guy, he's really interested in what Victor is doing. He read a publication about how Victor can bring can it's his what do you call ambition, and he thinks he can do it. He can create a whole person like just create a person and bring life to that person. And so this guy comes in to see the lecture, and he's watching it. And so Victor is at the hearing, showing these like top people what he's doing medically. And so he has this thing covered, and then he shows him what it is. And it's this board. There's a board, and on the board there's a body, but it's not like a full body. It's like just the upper torso, a head, and one arm. And you can see the spine a little bit coming out. You can see the heart and lungs and some other organs. You can see the brain, you know. And so he explains that he built this human at a different parts, and parts that were like functioning and fine. And even the brain was functioning fine. And so he runs an electrical current. He has these weird, they look like soda cans, but they're filled with like something, I don't know, and they light up when he like inserts them somewhere. And when he does this, it like runs electricity through the body, and it makes the body animated. It wakes up, and everybody's like, whoa, everyone's freaking out. Everyone's like, what the hell is this? This is madness, or this is just some weird fake stuff that you're trying to trick us. Like they don't believe him. And so like to prove that it's like a real thing that came to life, he takes a ball and he throws it at the creature, and the creature catches it, right? This human body part assemble thing is there, and he's like looking at it, he's having a hard time breathing, but he's looking at the ball. And then he like tells it to drop the ball, whatever, and he does, and he gets the ball back. And then the people at the hearing, like the judges, are like, you know, like, please end this freak show because this is insane. Like everyone's freaking out. They're having discussions like God created life and he's the only one that can take it away. Like who are you to bring something back to life, and Victor's talking about like you should, science is the way. You shouldn't be afraid of exploring and don't be like don't just bow down to dogma, and just live your lives like that. So the hearing didn't go well, even though he showed him the truth of what he can do. It didn't go well for him because he just they just didn't believe him. They thought it was like a trick or something, they were, and it was like just heresy. They were just like, this is insane. But there was a guy there who he's he makes later on in the movie he makes a deal with Victor, but he's there for a reason because he's really interested in Victor's work, and there's a reason why he's interested. But it just happened, and I don't know if this guy Hollindale, whatever his name is, planned for his daughter to marry William, so he had an excuse to go see Victor. But either way, it was a coincidence or planned by him. He was there. He saw it and he was really impressed. By the work. But there's a reason for it. But that reason isn't revealed till later. But I'll tell you what the reason is. The reason why he's interested in Victor Frankenstein's work is because he has syphilis. But again, you don't know that till like later towards the end or towards like the middle of the movie, and he's dying. And he wants eternal life. He wants the power that that would heal everything, and he wants to like be transferred into this body. And we don't find that out until later. But I'm just letting you know because you'll understand why he approaches him. There's a reason. It's not just coincidence, right? So he after the hearing, this Hollindale or whatever his name is, Hollindale or something like that, he catches up to him and he's got a letter to deliver from William, his brother, saying that he's getting married to this guy's daughter, and that they're going to be in town in like 3 days, and they're going to get together and whatnot. But this guy, this Hollindale guy, is like really interested in this guy's work, really interested in Victor's work, and so he tells him he was impressed, but at the same time, he knows that the hearing didn't go well, and this and that, and so he tells him, "Look, meet me in 3 days, and I'll show you something amazing, and I'll change your life forever." Okay. Okay. Next scene. Um, let's see. And at this point, it's the scenes kind of cut back from him. It goes back and forth, him telling the story into the ship. At one moment, it cuts back to the ship, and oh yeah. So what happens? It cuts to the scene where the monster breaks out of the ice. You see him break out of the ice. He gets out of the ice, and then it cuts there and it cuts back to Victor telling the story. And so it cuts to Victor. He's on his way to visit Hollindale, or whatever this guy's name is. And so essentially he meets with him, and he shows him, he's like taking pictures. It's like a hobby that he has. There's like this pretty much naked woman there, and he's like doing this artistic thing. And it's funny because the pictures, it's not funny, but the pictures, it's like an old school camera, right? And the pictures, instead of like a paper material, the picture gets on glass, which is really cool. But anyways, he meets with him and gives him a glass of milk because that's what Victor drinks. That's what I'm drinking right now. But essentially, he shows him this wooden board, and this wooden board shows the, what do you call it, the lymphatic system of a human being. It's been like with resin, it's been like attached to this board, and it's the full human lymphatic system. And so this really intrigues Victor. He's looking at it, and this is like something that like he's never really seen before. I guess no one has and they're studying it, and this Hollandale person shows him that there's an area where, in this area near the heart, it's where power is stored and where power gets used, right? And so Victor, at some point, he's like, "Who are you?" Like, he's like, "Well, this Hollandale character explains he used to be a military sergeant that, but he wasn't very good at it. Eventually, he got into the arms deal, and that's how he like art deal art military arms dealing, and that's how he made his fortune. He's really rich, and so essentially, he tells Victor, I will fund this entire crazy project of you building a human being from scratch and creating life. And so at first Frankenstein's like, I'm gonna consider it, because it's pretty out there. Um, uh, but at the same time, it's something he wants to do. But I think he considers it because he doesn't necessarily trust this guy, I guess. He just has he works alone, and he's always worked alone. And so this is kind of a new situation for him. So he's got to consider it. So eventually, William and Elizabeth show up, and Victor meets Elizabeth for the first time, and he's completely enchanted by her to the point where he's like falling in love with her. Like they have a conversation that's like kind of like bumping heads, and there's an attraction there. There's a point where Victor is out. He's like later in the movie, like he's out and he's looking for bodies to like experiment with and whatnot. And so they go to a public hanging, and he's like, yeah, before they even hang the guy, he's like, yeah, I like this one. We'll take this one. So they go hang the guy, and he takes the body, whatever. But he's out in the street market, and he spots Elizabeth and like follows her into a church, and she's about to go do a confession, and Victor slides into a confession booth acting like a priest, and starts hearing Elizabeth's confession about him, and but she's kind of playing him a little bit because she knows he's in there, and so it's like he figures it out, and so he opens the door, and she's like, and Victor's like, oh, so you knew I was following you, you knew I was in here. She's like, yeah, whatever, like, yeah. And so they go off and they have like a dinner or whatever, and she's bought books, and we get to see a side of Elizabeth, which is like, she's really interested in like scientific things too, but her passion led her to insects, and she's really interested in looking for things that are pure. That's what attracts her, is purity. And so they have a dance. It's a little bit inappropriate for them to be dancing because she's about to marry, Victor's brother William. But they do it anyways. And then at the same time, William has been assigned to help the build up the laboratory. So this Hollandale guy, he takes Victor for a tour of this castle, this like estate that he bought. It's like a cathedral castle thing. And Victor is like, "Oh, this is amazing, right?" And he's like telling them, "Oh, this is where this needs to be. I need these electrical things here. I need these things built that are like these spike things that are made out of silver for electrical, conductivity." He's being very specific about what he wants and how this is going to work, right? And so Hollandale is like, "Yeah, whatever you need, I have the funds for it. I'll get it. I'll get it fabricated, whatever, because I have the capability." And so William is in charge of getting all this done, right? And so the more he spends time getting stuff done, Victor is actually spending more time with Elizabeth, and he's like falling in love with Elizabeth. And at some point, they're out like catching butterflies, and doing just stuff that's like pretty like two people doing stuff together that's kind of romantic, in nature. So at some point, um, Victor confesses like to Elizabeth that he feels like a connection with her, and like he thinks that they should be together. And Elizabeth is like, no, that's not what this is. Like, I made a choice and you're not it, you know? And so this makes Victor kind of heartbroken. And I think this adds, what I like about this storyline, this part of the character arc, is that he gets more bitter. You know, he gets more like, I was really enjoying this. I was enjoying this, like, kind of being in love thing, and then you just like spit it in my face. But obviously, it was wrong from the start. You know, this is just part of Victor's personality. He's just mad. He doesn't respect things. He's very just a mad guy. You know, he's playing God, and he doesn't respect things. You know, so the more we go into the movie, the more we see how bad of a person he is. You know, and so as it goes on, at this point, Victor's struggling to figure out, like, he's got this body that he's been experimenting on. It's like not working. And so finally he figures out like a missing piece of the puzzle. And so he finally like makes some adjustments and whatnot, and is able to get the body to come alive. And he's like, holy, she's kind of freaked out and scared. So he turns it off. But he figures out the right place to connect like these little electrode things that he sticks in the spine, and so it's working. So he's pretty excited. So at some point, they're at a party with Elizabeth playing piano, and Victor walks by her and kind of like like does a nice little, like, rubs her shoulder back, whatever, and goes to the bathroom. And so Hollindale goes to the bathroom. He kind of notices that Victor's falling for Elizabeth. He's noticing, and he's not comfortable with it. And so he kind of in a very nuanced way kind of confronts him about him, but also he's growing very impatient at this time. He's like, I'm really impatient with this. Like, this is like, you're not focused. You know, you're spending too much time with her and whatnot. So he's kind of like warning him, like, get it done. And also he tells him, look, because he's an arms dealer or whatever, he knows there's going to be a big battle soon. And he's like, this is it. Take whatever body parts you need from the battle after it's done. We'll take whatever body parts and use that to create the perfect, you know, human body that he wants to create. He wants to create a big, and also he says the bigger the better, because it's easier to handle the organs and whatnot, you know. But essentially, they make a, you know, they take all these bodies, and from these bodies he starts creating. There's a montage sequence, which is pretty funny because it's kind of like light-hearted classical music, but he's like cutting parts, and there's like blood everywhere. He's moving bodies and like peeling skin off, and like experimenting, and like he's pulling on the muscles for the fingers so they move. So it's kind of like a very like Edward Scissorhands situation kind of thing. It's kind of interesting. But anyways, so there's a montage of him like building the monster, and it gets to the point where this Hollandale character is there, and he like takes a picture of the monster and whatnot for like, he's trying to record the process of all of it, you know, for, what do you call it, posterity. Anyways, so there comes a point where they pretty much have everything in place, and there's a storm coming. And this is where this Hollandale person uh tells Victor, listen, like, I need you to do one last thing for me. I provided all the funds to get all this. I manufactured all the things you wanted to get manufactured. I put it all in place for you. I need you to do one, a solid for me. And then he tells him, like, he kind of slowly reveals that he has syphilis and he's dying, and he wants his soul to be transferred into this body. That's what he wants. And Victor's like, no, we're not doing that. That's not what we're doing here. And by anyways, I don't think he knows how to do that, but he's just saying straight up no. And so the Hollandale guy gets like really pissed, and he grabs one of the silver spikes needed to like conduct the electricity or whatever from the lightning. And there's this big hole. Like, they're like high up, right? They're adjusting stuff. They're like high up. There's a hole in the center of the building, the structure. They're like in this high cathedral thing. And he grabs it and he's about to throw it down. He's like, if you don't do this, I'm gonna stop you. I don't care. Like if you say no to me, then I'm gonna ruin you. Basically is what's going on. And Victor's like, no, don't do this. Like you're gonna destroy everything we worked for just because you don't get your way. So eventually, Victor acts quick to grab the thing, but there's Hollandale slips and this thing like falls to the ground and it kind of damages it. And so while you're watching, you're like, oh shit, like it's all fucked up now, Like, is it gonna work? Eventually, Hollandale's like hanging on for his life. He's about to, fall down like I don't know how many flights of floors, probably like 6 or 8, I don't know. But eventually, uh, um, Victor can't hold on to him anymore. His sleeves are like ripping, and he just can't hold on to him. So this guy just falls straight down and lands on the poof, on the tile and just smashes. He's dead. So with that, he doesn't even take a minute to pause. He's just like, "Oh shit, I can't believe that happened," and he just continues because there's a storm coming. Everything's in place. The body's in place. He has a very limited time, so he starts putting everything in place. He goes downstairs, grabs the silver piece, and he checks on the Hallandale character. He like lifts him up for a second, and you can see the back of his skull has been totally smashed. Like his brain was smashed. Like it's pretty gross looking. So he just leaves him there. He takes the silver piece and he inserts it in this like last thing that he's got to do. So everything is in place. He even climbs to the top, the tippity top of this like cathedral structure, right? And he puts a silver thing there too. While it's raining, there's thunder everywhere and lightning, and he's just doing this like, okay, no problem. So everything is set. He has to like fix a few things last minute because there's a few things that are like kind of go out of disorder. There's like the power starts lowering, so he's got to fix some things. And finally, lightning strikes and it zaps down this silver thing and it goes down and it hits the guy who's there strapped with all this silver stuff and then finally electricity hits, and you know I gotta say that seems to be like a very 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 iconic moment in the story, right? He does one thing I didn't like is that the director Guillermo didn't take a lot of time there. If I felt like he could have done something cool visually with the lightning, with the electricity, but it wasn't there. I thought it could have been a little more, like, I don't know, just a little more. But it's okay. It's not a big deal. But anyways, electricity runs through. It starts pumping. It goes into this like he does, which is cool. He does this like cinematic thing where he goes like into the organs and you see the power running, like electricity, and finally like it powers the what do you call it, the lymphatic system, whatever. And it just sparks electricity, and then stuff's breaking, right, as there's electricity because the spike that fell and kind of broke, it was shooting electricity out like uncontrollably, and so it was kind of breaking things. Anyways, he checks on the body and notices that there's no heartbeat, so he feels that he feels like he failed. So he just goes to bed. And so when he wakes up, he sees the creature standing there and he's kind of freaked out. But when he wakes up, there's the creature. It's alive, it's looking at him, and he's kind of terrified for a second, but then he's like amused. So he kind of like checks on it, and is like, okay, everything's good here. And so over time, what happens is Victor is trying to get the monster to talk, but but everything is brand new to the monster. Like he doesn't know what sunlight is. He doesn't know what anything is. He doesn't know what water is. Like he's just everything is new to him, right? And so Victor like understands that, but he also doesn't have patience for him. He's trying to get him to say words and he won't. Like the monster doesn't know how to take care of himself, so he's got to spend like the whole day taking care of the monster. It's exhausting Victor, and he's losing his patience because he feels like he failed, even though the creature's alive, because he feels that it has no intelligence, and so he feels like he failed. And here comes William and Elizabeth to visit, and he's in a pickle, right? He like tries to hide. He doesn't really show the monster. He tries to like distract Elizabeth and William, like go upstairs, come upstairs. I got things to show you. But Elizabeth makes her way to where she can kind of hear something and like finally finds the monster and spends like a little moment with him. And the monster's like really intrigued. And the difference is Elizabeth's very kind, but Victor is like a mean asshole. Like he doesn't have patience for the monster. He's got him chained up down like in the basement, whatever. This thing, he hits him with an iron rod because he won't say anything else other than Victor. Like all he says is Victor, Victor. Like that's the only word that the monster knows. Victor, Victor. And so he feels like he failed. And anytime like he's losing his patience and his humanity for the monster. He doesn't consider the monster he created. He doesn't consider it human. He doesn't consider it as someone. He consider it as an it, like a thing. So he doesn't treat it like he would treat another human being, although he doesn't treat human beings that well either. But he treats it as a thing, and he's like smacking it and like hurting it, like the way his dad would hurt him when he got things wrong. The father would smack him with a stick anytime he forgot something or like didn't memorize a piece of knowledge that was like important, didn't couldn't remember it. So his dad would smack him with a stick. So he's doing the same thing to the monster, but with like an iron stick. He's just smacking him and hitting him. At some point, the monster gets like frustrated. He takes the iron rod from Victor and just like bends it like it was nothing and throws it. He's just pissed. At this point, he's just pissed. So Victor feels like he failed. Um, and even though William shows up with the letter saying the Royal Academy for Medicine invited him to to hear him out, he kind of denies it. He's like, no, I don't want to do this because it didn't come out right. He doesn't want to go through with it. And so William's a little surprised. But also, here's where he lies to William and to Elizabeth and everybody, because it was his fault that Hollandale died. But essentially, he puts the blame on the monster. He says the monster did it, and so he puts the accusation on the monster, makes the monster more like a monster, right? And so you have Victor lying. And so, Victor shows William, look, this is what happened to Hollandale. He tells him that the monster killed him, and so he's dangerous. And so he tells William to go back to Vienna, take Elizabeth where it's safe, and he's going to take care of it. And there's an assumption that he's going to kill it, essentially. So what Victor does is he pretty much has all these like he's got like hundreds of these like canteens full of gas or whatever, and they're everywhere. And he's ooh, you guys hear that lightning bolt? It's funny talking about Frankenstein. There's freaking lightning bolts outside. How funny is that? Anyways, he pretty much puts all these like canteens full of gas everywhere. He drops gas all over the ground, like all over the place, and he goes as a monster. He's still chained, and he's like, just say one word. Don't say Victor. Say a different word. Give me a reason to save you, right? Because at this point, he just feels like the monster is really dumb. Okay, like it's unintelligent, and he feels like he failed, and so he just wants to get rid of it. He wants to kill it and destroy it. So he lights the whole thing on fire. The whole building is on fire. You have the monster who's chained, and he's starting to freak out because of the fires and the flame and the heat and whatever. So Victor runs out. He's outside looking at the building, just like catching fire. And you can hear the monster screaming for his life, saying, Victor, Victor. And so eventually, Victor's having like second thoughts about it, and so he like runs to the front gates, the front doors, and when he opens it, this huge explosion happens, and just like he goes flying, and as he goes flying, his leg like breaks in half, like it fall, like it just it's so the visual is amazing. You can see his leg literally breaking in midair. It's crazy. So he goes flying, his leg snaps, like it's pretty gross. When he lands, he lands on this thing and he's like he looks down, he's like, he starts yelling. And Elizabeth and William, they had a bad feeling about what was gonna happen, so they turn around and when they make it there, they see Victor on the ground, they see the building exploding. I mean, just exploding like crazy. And so that's where the story shifts back to we're on the boat and Victor's there and he's like, you know, in bad condition. He's telling the story and the captain's like, "Here's a commotion on the boat." And he's like, "Well, let me go attend to my sailors and I'll be right back." He opens the door and there's the monster, right? And the monster pushes the captain back and is about to bash his head. And Victor's like, "No, no, don't kill him, don't kill him. No more killing." And the captain's like kill us both and confirm your creator's tale, and the monster is like, Victor told his tale. Well, let me tell you my tale. So that was kind of an interesting little turn of events there. So now the monster tells his tale about what happened. So now we go to part two. So we had the prelude, then we had part one, which is Victor's tale, and now whenever the creature is like, "Well, let me tell you my tale," that's when part two starts, and it's the creature's tale. So right now we're like an hour and 20 minutes into the movie, and there's still a big portion left. I mean, the movie is like 2 hours and 30 minutes, so there's a whole other hour left, right? Just about. It's a long movie, but it's like an epic tale. It's well done and well worth it. Let me take a little sip, a little break here, because like I said, there's a lot that happens, and like I said, this movie's long. There's a part two. So, the monster. We're about a little bit over halfway through the whole movie. We're like an hour and 20 minutes into it. The monster tells his tale, and so we cut back to the building exploding and the monster is screaming for Victor. He breaks his chains. He breaks loose from the chains before the whole building explodes, and he slips into this little gutter system that like leads to the ocean. And that's where he's able to escape before the whole thing blows up. He falls into the ocean. Next thing you know, there's low tide. He gets like washed up to like some river bank or something, and there's like a low tide. He's in a pool of water, and he wakes up, and he's just like really confused, doesn't know where he is. He starts walking. He walks into the forest where he comes across like there's a place in the forest. It looks like there's like just skeletons everywhere. It looks like it was the remains of a battle or something. And so he finds a coat, like a military coat, and he puts it on because he's cold and whatnot. And he finds elk, like steer or whatever elk, like the deer with the horns and whatnot. And so the deer themselves aren't scared of the monster. They don't seem to run away, but the monster is intrigued. He's like, "Oh, look at this beautiful creature! It's like eating berries." And so the monster starts picking berries and like eating it, and he doesn't seem like to like it very much. But then starts feeding the elk, whatever. And after feeding it a second time, the uh, the steer gets a bullet shot right through the face, and it like freaks out the monster. And there's these two hunters that take aim. They're like, "What is that? A monster? Like, what is that thing?" And so they shoot. They shoot the monster, and he shoots him in the chest. And you see all this blood come out. And he's like running. And they're shooting at him. They're like, "What was that? Did we kill it?" And so the monster walks. It cuts to another scene where he's walking, and his wound healed. You can see that his wounds, like he's got this kind of power where if he gets cut or shot, his body will heal it in an incredible speed, and he doesn't die. He just doesn't die. His body heals, and this is what he's learning, that his body heals. So he runs off. he finds like a house that's got a mill, and so he runs towards the house. He like hides in the gears of the mill, but it's not like not like in the movie where it's like an air. You guys hear that lightning? It's so funny. I'm talking about Frankenstein. There's like a lightning happening and thunder. Anyways, it's not like what you see in the movies where he hides in this mill. It's like an air mill. It's like instead they went with like a water mill, like on a creek or whatever. It's got the little round thing that gets pushed by water. And so he's hiding in this mill where the gears are at, and it happens to be the house of the two hunters. But at this house, there's a family, there's kids, there's a grandfather who's blind, and he stays hidden there for for a long time, and he watches the family, and he like at some point he's watching them. He's watching the grandpa teach the little girl how to like words. And so as she's learning words, the Frankenstein monster is like watching and observing and learning at the same time. And he's learning how they communicate, and talk and how they act. And eventually he comes to like respect them, and like at some point he's like, I want to be part of this family, you know? And so he starts doing things for him. Like for example, whenever the two hunters, whatever, they go out to gather wood. They're talking. They're saying, we're gonna need so much more wood than this, and like and bigger wood. Like, we're gonna have to come back and keep going out here to get wood. Well, the following night, the monster like brings all the wood they would need to them, right? And they're all surprised. And the old man is like, "It's the spirit of the forest that did this. We have to thank the spirit of the forest." And so they're thanking the spirit of the forest. And so the Frankenstein monster likes that he can help the family. He's really liking that. He feels good. He's learning things from them. He like wishes to really be a part of the family. And so at some point he actually builds what do you call it? Not a stable, but a fenced in area for the sheep that they had. So he builds like a fenced in area for the sheep. And at the same time, now the family is leaving stuff outside for the spirit of the forest or whatever. And so Frankenstein, he takes the gifts, like clothes and stuff and food, and he's really becoming like a guardian for them in a lot of ways. And there's rats in the mill, and he like becomes friends with the rats. They're just like hanging on his shoulder, over time. And so there's a one night where they get attacked by wolves. Wolves come in, they attack the sheep, and the hunters go and shoot the wolves. And the monster sees this, and he understands that the wolves don't necessarily hate the sheep or the humans. They're just hungry. And then he understands that the humans don't hate the wolf necessarily. They're just protecting the sheep. So he gets like this understanding of how cruel the world is. It's not like it can be cruel. He's getting an understanding of the world and whatnot. And at some point, the family, the hunters and whatnot, they're like, we have to go. Like it's not safe here. Let's take the women like like in town where it's safer, and we're gonna go out and hunt the wolves. And the grandfather decides to stay back, and so they're like, okay, whatever. If you want to stay back, stay back. So they leave. The grandfather's alone. He's blind. He's alone in the house, and finally, the Frankenstein monster is like finds the courage to go in and like introduce himself in a way. Like he wants to go in and talk to the old man. So he does. He goes in there, and the old man's like, "Who's there? Like what are you doing?" But in a very like inviting way. He's saying these things like, like where do you come from? What are you doing?" And the Frankenstein monster. You guys hear that lightning? It's so hilarious. Talking about Frankenstein the movie, and there's lightning and thunder. Anyways, the old man is like, who are you, whatnot, and the monster's like, I'm just traveling. He's scared, and like, you know, and the old man is like, he can't see him, but he can hear him, and he can kind of sense him, and can kind of sense that he's like a good person. At one point, the monster drops a bottle of whiskey or something and is like really freaked out because he's afraid he's going to get hit for doing something wrong. And the old man is like, no, no, it's okay. Like, why are you afraid? Don't be afraid. Like, it's okay. Don't worry about that. He's being really nice, really patient with him. And this is something that the monster isn't used to, and he's really liking it. He's getting comfortable with the idea of like the old man being his friend, and the old man is like, yeah, I'm your friend, you know, you're welcome here. You're going to keep me company, which I appreciate, and I'll be your friend. So they become friends, and the old man has books, and he's like, why don't you read to me? It'd be really nice if I had someone to read to me. Could you read to me? So the monster reads like all these books, for like a whole season. The family's gone for a whole season. He's reading books and he's learning. He reads the Bible. He reads like classics. All these books, and so he's becoming intelligent. And learning how to speak. And eventually, he gets to a point where they have a conversation. And he's like, I don't know who I am. I don't have memories, and my memories, whatever the memories I do have, they feel very jumbled up. They don't make any sense. And the old man's like, well, what do you remember? He's like, well, I remember the word Victor. And and the old man's like, well, why don't you follow that as a clue? And so the Frankenstein monster goes back to that cathedral building where he was made. And by now it's like destroyed, right? It's in ruins, and he's like snooping around. He's looking for things, clues, what he is. He finds different diagrams, pictures, even finds a letter that was meant for Victor, that it was the Royal Academy for Medicine. He got invited to go show the monster or whatever, but he didn't do it. So there's an address there where he can find him. So he takes all this information in, and goes back to the house where the old man is. By the time he gets back, wolves had gotten inside the house and attacked the old man. And so he gets there kind of just like almost just in time, but he goes in there. He starts killing the wolves. I mean, he freaking like smashes one wolf in the face. He like rips the skin off the head of one of them. He squeezes one to death. He like throws one into the fire. I mean, it's a pretty cool little action sequence, but it's pretty insane. And so the old man's bitten, and the Frankenstein monster picks him up, puts him in a chair, and is like, "Are you okay?" Like, and the old man's like, he's talking, I don't know what he's talking about, but he's like, Frankenstein monster is like, he's like, I know what I am. I'm 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 this monster that's been created out of other dead bodies. That's what I am. And he's like, I'm a monster. And the old man, before he dies, he's like, you're not a monster. I know who you are. You're a good person. You're my friend. And then he dies. And then that's when the hunters walk in, and they see the monster there with their dead grandfather, and like, what did you do? They start blaming him, and they fire a bullet into the monster's head, and it goes in right here, and all this blood starts coming out. The monster is like, ah, it almost doesn't phase him. Like, you'd think that would kill him, but he's like, ah. And then like he's just standing there, and the other guy has this like farming tool that's like for cutting wheat or whatnot, and he takes that and he just stabs him in the shoulder or something, like in the chest. And so you got this bullet hole in the head and this freaking thing that's been stabbed in his chest, and he's mad. He's like getting really pissed. So he grabs the man that just stabbed him by the jaw and just rips his jaw out and just kills this guy instantly. And then he's like struggling to walk. He walks out. The other two hunters are freaked out. He's walking outside. He's like pissed. He's hurt. And so he gets kind of far away. At a certain point, the hunters come out with guns, and they shoot at him again. They hit him, and he falls. And then the second shot hits him in the throat, and he falls back, and like you think he's dead. Um, and like after a while, it's like dark. He wakes up, and like his wounds have healed up. Like the bullet wound in the head has been healed. The shot in his throat has been healed. The stab wound is healed. The other shot is healed. So he's healed, and he realizes he can't die. and he realizes that he's going to suffer and feel all this pain, and there's never going to be a chance for him to die to escape pain. He's going to live forever and feel pain and suffer, and and so he's kind of mad at this point. He's mad at the whole situation because he's like, I can't die. Like that's like all I want to do now is just die because like I have no mercy. I don't have a chance to just end the pain. While other humans die, I don't have that. And he feels cursed, and so I forget what happens here. I think it cuts back to he tracks down where Victor is, and so he finds Victor at this point in time. It's the wedding night of William and Elizabeth are getting ready, and so Victor goes to see Elizabeth and is like, I'm really happy for you. I wish you the best with my brother. And Elizabeth is pissed. Okay, her father's dead. The whole freaking cathedral blew up. She thinks he killed the monster. Like she just is pissed at him. I think he even slaps him in the face, right, and tell him to go away. And Victor's kind of heartbroken about that. He's actually pretty heartbroken and upset, and and pretty much Elizabeth tells him like straight up, like, you're a monster, you're heartless, and because people just presume that like he killed him or something. I don't know. There's a presumption in the air of like what people believe or not what happened, and so uh Victor goes back to his room, and when he goes back to his room, there's like a window that's open, and he gets a sense that the monster's in there. He's like, come out if you're in here. So he does. The monster comes out, and he's like, he confronts Victor, and he's like, look, I know you think I'm a monster, but I'm more than that. I'm someone. To me, I'm somebody. Even though you think I'm a monster, um, but I'm alone, and I'm tired of being alone. I want you to make somebody for me. And Victor's like, make you a companion, and the monster is like, yeah, that's what I want, a companion. And Victor's like, what? So you can have children with this monster and fill the world with monsters? He's like, that's not ever gonna happen, right? And so the monster is gets pissed. He's like, I'm telling you what you need to do. And Victor's like, he's like, no, I'm not doing that. So the Frankenstein monster is pissed. He actually starts throwing Victor around the room because he's like, well, if you won't allow me to have love, I'm gonna bring suffering into your life, like for the rest of your life. And so at some point, Elizabeth, in her wedding gown, makes her way to where the chaos is happening, and sees the monster, and they see each other, and so for a moment they pause and they embrace each other because the monster remembers Elizabeth from earlier, from when he was chained, and how kind she was and how just nice she was a person to him. And so he has like an affection for her for being so kind. And she has an affection for the monster because she sees this like purity in him, right? That and but I guess he doesn't know all the bad stuff he's done as well. But he sees like this innocent purity in the monster that she's been looking for her whole life. Like this, she's been looking for purity, right? But anyways, uh, Victor's pissed and he pulls out a pistol and is about to shoot the monster. And Elizabeth is like, no, and gets in the way of the shot. And so Victor ends up shooting Elizabeth like in this chest area. And Victor's like, oh shit, like what just happened? And so all these people come rushing in. He like drops the gun, whatever, like, and he's like, the monster did it. The monster attacked Elizabeth. So again, he lies again and tells everybody that the monster just killed Elizabeth and whatnot. And so people try to fight him and whatnot, and they can't hold him. Even William tries to like attack the monster, but he throws William, and William goes flying, and hits his head on the side of a bedpost or something concrete and just smashes his head. There's blood everywhere. So at this point, the monster has Elizabeth in his hands and is walking out out the room, down the steps. Everything's made to look like a wedding, and all the guests are there. They're freaking out, and so he goes outside. So Victor has a last few words with William. William looks up at Victor and says, you know, Victor's like, "I can save you," and William's like, "From who? From you? Like, no one can save themselves from you. You're a monster, you know." And Victor's like taken back by that. He's like, "Ugh, I can't believe you're telling me that." Anyways, Victor grabs like a shotgun and he goes after the monster. The monster is at this point he makes his way to a cave and lays Elizabeth down on this like rock and has her last moments with the monster, and she's actually happy in a way that if this is her last moment on earth that she gets to spend it with him, and she has this like this love for him that's like pure, and and whatnot. And so the monster's there, she dies, Victor appears, and before he can like shoot the monster like slaps the gun away and presses Victor against the wall and is telling him like, you need to kill me. Like the monster is like, you need to kill me because I can't take it anymore. Like I can't take this suffering and I can't die. And is pretty much saying like, and if you don't do this, I'm gonna make you suffer. And so he literally like, breaks Victor's nose. He's like, I can make you humble. I'm gonna be your master from now on, even though you're the creator. Like I have power over you. And he breaks his nose with his thumb, and it's like it's a very like gut wrenching scene. And the monster runs off. Victor gets his gun, and he's got his prosthetic because remember he broke his leg from the explosion. So at this point, Victor looks like a monster. I mean, kind of. He walks like one. He's just like with his prosthetic leg. He's just mad. He's got a broken nose, and pretty much follows the monster north to where it's all ice. And finally, we do a full circle story where we come to the beginning of the movie where we're in the ice. There's a tent, and Victor's in this tent, and the monster comes out to like see him or whatever, and Victor shoots him in the hand and shoots him in the face or whatever. Of course, the monster heals, and so he drags Victor out of the tent. The tent catches fire by accident, but Victor has these dynamite sticks that he bought to kill the monster, and he's being dragged out. He's like losing them though, but he gets one, and the monster sees it and he's like, you think this will end my life? Well, let's find out. So he lights it and the monster holds on to the dynamite and tells Victor to run, and Victor's like, holy shit, with a broken leg and whatnot, just like trying his hardest to run away. And this thing explodes. Victor kind of goes flying, and lo and behold, after the explosion, the monster's still standing. He's got like holes everywhere, and he's been torched, but he's still alive. And so that's when the sailors from the Royal Danish ship called the Horizon, the sailors see the fire and they pick him up, and then they end up in the boat. And so now the whole story made a whole full circle. We're back at the beginning of the movie, and Victor's dying. And so after Victor hearing the monster side of the story, he finally like realizes how wrong he was about him. How wrong he was. He regrets creating him in the first place because the Frankenstein monster can't have a normal experience. He's going to live forever and suffer forever. There's no like redemption for him. He's never going to die and feel peace. He's going to live on forever suffering. And that's what like bothers him the most. And so Victor is like, I'm sorry I did this to you. I'm sorry that I didn't, you're not just a normal creation from God. I'm sorry I created you and it's like a complete disaster, you know. I'm sorry I didn't do this and do that. So Victor asks for his forgiveness. He's like, "Will you forgive me?" And so the monster does. Eventually he says, "Victor, I forgive you." And so Victor dies, and in some strange manner, Victor gains like he dies, but he gains his humanity back, and the monster, in a way, gains his humanity back by forgiving Victor. And so he's not angry anymore. He's just kind of accepted what things are and what they are, and so the captain, after Victor dies, the captain allows the monster to get off the ship. So the monster gets off the ship, and they let him go, and the ship's stuck in the ice. So the last thing the monster does is he pushes the boat off the ice, and then the men are free. They can go home. And so they're all happy. The captain says, "All right, let's go home." And the monster just walks out in the ice, sees the sunset, and that's how it ends. So it's like I said, it's like a 2 hour and a half movie, hour long movie. It's a pretty long movie, but it's the storytelling is amazing. The effects on the creature are amazing. What he did, how he took the story to a whole new level, how he changed things, the character arcs, the story, the prelude, is was really interesting. The 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 first part and the second part, how he switched perspective from Victor to the monster, and how everything goes like full circle is pretty amazing. Um, yeah, one of the most interesting movies made in 2025. Um, pretty gothic, pretty um, it's a story of like redemption in a lot of ways. It's a story of how people can get lost and can lose their humanity and become monsters themselves. And man, there's a crazy storm happening right now. I think the timing of doing the movie review of Frankenstein while there's a freaking storm right now is pretty insane. So I'll leave it at that. I hope you get a chance to watch it. It's on Netflix. If you haven't watched it yet, I recommend it. Prepare yourself some popcorn and some candy and whatnot because it's a long movie, but very interesting. Very interesting. It took me a second to like it because it was like totally different, from how it's told in the like originally in the books and whatnot. Other older movies and whatnot, how they're made. This is totally different. So I really appreciate it for that reason. But it's starting to storm. I'm gonna close up shop here and get in the house because it's raining really bad. It's storming really bad. It's crazy how. Anyways, yeah. So, anyways, yeah. Check out the movie, and I hope you enjoyed this review and plot of the movie. And with that said, I hope you all have a good night. My name's Lasso. This is my channel, Lasso's Passions. I'm Oklahoma's India tour, and I'm gonna keep doing these. Almost like every other day, I do a little movie review, and I do other stuff in between. So, anyways, gotta finish my milk here, and I'm gonna say good night to you all, and head inside because it is freaking raining outside like crazy right now. It's raining cats and dogs, thunder. It's the perfect weather to get electricity to electrocute a monster to life, isn't it? All right. Good night, folks. You all have a good night, sweet dreams, and all that. And I'll be seeing you on the next one. Peace out, my friends. Stay safe. This weather's getting crazy.